like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to the Arundel County House Delegation meeting. And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance and prayer by Delegate Munoz.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Dear God, thank you for bringing us all together this morning. Thank you for our health, thank you for our families, and thank you for our communities. Please grant us the grace to put aside our differences, to see each other as equals, to respect the diversity of thought and background that we each have. And please help us to work together for this amazing county that we love, to help every single member live a better life here in Maryland. Amen.
Amen. All right, so good morning, everyone. We have a rather ambitious agenda this morning, and as we always start, I'd like to take the opportunity to recognize some of the guests that have joined us. I'll start with acknowledging Congressman John Sarbanes, who will be speaking to us momentarily. And I see that we have some of our senators on the call with us. We have Senator Simon Ayer. We have the chair of the Senate delegation, Senator Sarah Elfreth. I'm sure that we'll be having Senator Bidel, as well as potentially Senator Riley and Senator Rosapep, who may join us. But I always like to acknowledge our senators from the Anne Arundel House delegation. I see that we have Chief Walford, we have Ms. Perkins, we have a couple members from the Board of Anne Arundel County Public School System Board of Education. We have Pete Barron from the County Executive's Office. And if I miss someone, I will make sure that I double back and acknowledge those folks as we continue through the agenda. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our congressman who represents the 3rd Congressional District here in Maryland, who is part of a dynamic Maryland congressional delegation that has done incredible work for us over the past couple of years throughout the pandemic and continues to do great work for us. So without further ado, Congressman Sarbanes, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chair Rogers. It's a pleasure to be with you all this morning. First of all, let me thank you for the Pledge of Allegiance and the prayer. That's actually how we start every session of Congress every morning. So I've had the opportunity to preside a few times when we hear the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. It's a way for us to try to anchor ourselves in something very common and start the day with a sense of collective purpose. And we certainly need that in Washington to try to get things done these days. I want to thank all of you. I know that the General Assembly is heading into crunch time right now with a lot of mixing and sorting and all the rest of the activity that produces good legislation as a result of your gathering each year. And I want to thank you for fighting hard for Anne Arundel County, of course, where we jointly represent a lot of constituents, but also fighting, obviously, for the state of Maryland to make sure that we stay healthy and strong as hopefully we're coming out of the pandemic in a more sustained way. Obviously, we have to keep our wits about us. It's been a tough 2 years, but Anne Arundel County and you all have certainly taken a real leadership role in a bipartisan way to get Maryland through this tough period. So hopefully there are brighter days ahead. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to just be with you for a few minutes. And I'll try not to slow down the agenda too much. I really just wanted to come by and give you an update on what's happening in Washington. What are the things that are occupying or preoccupying us, depending on what the topic might be. As you can imagine, I'm sure you've heard from other members of the delegation, obviously the situation in Ukraine is top of mind every single day. But even to put that in a larger context, this tug of war between anti-democratic forces and pro-democratic forces across the globe seems to be intensifying with each passing day, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine is symptomatic of that larger conflict. I can tell you that I've now been in Washington for almost 16 years. We've received many classified briefings on various threats around the globe and sort of emerging situations of tension. But about 3 weeks before this invasion, we had a briefing from Secretary Austin, Secretary of Defense Austin, from Secretary of State Blinken, from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and other key players and leaders in our security architecture, if you will, of the country. And I came out of that briefing very sober, as I think many of my colleagues did. We were getting very specific information about the threat and the likelihood that Russia would invade. And I really give our intelligence community high marks for seeing that coming, for sharing information that could begin to get our Western NATO allies ready for what was happening. And of course, it came to pass. I commend the Biden administration, but I commend members of Congress, Democrats and Republicans, for standing together with tremendous solidarity with the Ukrainian people at this time of real threat. And as you know, we've tried to bring to bear our support in 3 broad baskets: military assistance. Last week, another $800 million of military assistance was authorized by the president. Humanitarian assistance, which is obviously critical. And the president announced yesterday, as you know, that the United States is preparing to accept up to 100,000, committing to accept up to 100,000 Ukrainian refugees here in the United States. Of course, there are 3 million on the move in Europe right now, which is the largest refugee crisis we've seen since World War II. And then economic assistance. 2 weeks ago, or 10 days ago, as part of the omnibus bill that we just passed, the FY 2022 omnibus bill, we include a supplemental amount of $13.6 billion of assistance to go, economic assistance and military combined, to go to Ukraine. So doing all we can to push us hard back on the Russian invasion. Other steps we've taken: the ban on the import, obviously, of Russian oil and gas into the United States, where we've tried to ameliorate that impact at the pump somewhat with releasing oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, working with the administration on that, and bringing all of these sanctions to bear. So we don't know what the future holds in terms of the length and intensity of this conflict, but the solidarity that's been demonstrated by the West, by NATO allies in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, frankly, is unprecedented and was not predicted by the Europeans themselves, I think, or the Ukrainians. So we have to keep at that, and I appreciate all of the interest and support people have shown across the country for that effort. So that has been a preoccupation, of course, in Washington. The other thing we were spending a lot of time on, which I alluded to just momentarily, was getting the FY 2022 omnibus appropriations bill passed. We lagged significantly. We like to get those done in time for September or October 1st each year. And obviously we couldn't come to agreement for some months, but we finally did get that done. Let me just mention a couple of things that are in there. I mean, it's a $1.5 trillion budget bill, so I certainly couldn't go through the laundry list of every item, but just some things that give you some highlights. Expanding childcare and early learning programs to reach more working families, investing in K-12 public schools, at the tune of billions of dollars of support, rural broadband to more communities, $2 million to STEM apprenticeships, almost $27 billion for childhood nutrition programs, reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act, very, very important piece of legislation, almost $28 billion in rental assistance. We know there's a huge housing shortage, across the country. We have to deal with that. Federal government is trying to step in. When it comes to Maryland, the Chesapeake Bay, obviously that's been a key focus of mine. And I know it's a focus of yours as legislators in Anne Arundel County. We were able to get $88 million for the EPA's Chesapeake Bay program, $3.88 million for oyster recovery and other key investments there, and then strengthening public health. Coming out of the pandemic, very, very important for us to do that, learn the lessons that can make our public health system better prepared for what comes next, and broadly on a day-to-day basis, making sure that it can reach out and support people across the communities that we represent. I've been advocating for many years for increased funding for school-based health centers at the federal level, and we were able to get $60 million for school-based health centers, which was a huge win. Also, we know what's happening in terms of substance use disorder across the country, $6.5 billion to help with that problem. And then many of you know and have heard how important
Good morning.
during the pandemic. That was going to be ending in terms of waivers from the Medicare program to allow for coverage of telehealth services. We were able to get that extended, which was very important. If you heard from hospitals, other healthcare providers, universities, et cetera, having that telehealth, and in particular, mental health services that are able to be provided through telehealth resources, having that extended was very, very important. So Ukraine, the budget, obviously, the infrastructure bill was a massive investment in Maryland. I won't get into the details on that. You've seen the events that we're holding across the state to highlight this huge investment in our bridges, our tunnels, our highways, and other infrastructure that's gone neglected for so long. And so those investments are going to continue to roll out. In other words, we keep saying it's not infrastructure day or week, it's infrastructure decade that's coming. And we look forward to working with legislators in Maryland across the country to help with that. And I know that the budget that you are looking at is certainly going to invest in some critical construction projects. And then postal reform, I just wanted to mention this because this definitely touches our communities. This is where the rubber hits the road. We know, we hear from our constituents when they get frustrated with what's happening with the Postal Service. We finally, after a decade and a half, and when Elijah Cummings was chair of the Oversight Committee, I served with him. We were trying to get this done in terms of postal reform. Finally got it done. It's a major overhaul of the U.S. Postal Service. It will help it financially in terms of its solvency. And I think that in turn can help bolster the best practices that need to be put in place to get the Postal Service, frankly, back to that position of high approval, which it has generally had in the public, but has taken a hit over the last 2 or 3 years. The last thing we're trying to do, one of the major things we're trying to do before we sort of stop with the legislation pipeline at the federal level, because as you know, we're heading into an election year. That always makes it a little more difficult, but we do want to pass the American Competes Act, and this would help accelerate American production of semiconductor chips. Very, very important. Address other supply chain disruptions, diversify the STEM workforce, other things just to make us more competitive. And what we know from the pandemic is the more we can rely on ourselves, the better off we're going to be. Obviously, that doesn't mean retreating from the global stage and all of the interactions that necessitates. But we want to be resourceful. We want to know that we can sort of carry ourselves when we need to. And that's what investing in this American Competes Act is all about. There's a lot of other things, and there's specific things that I am bringing attention to, but those are the highlights of where we are spending a lot of our time in Washington. always striving, let me just close with this, to bridge or overcome the partisan divide that unfortunately seems to characterize a lot of the conversation and political discourse that we have at all levels these days. But our efforts in Ukraine, the success in getting the appropriations bill across the finish line with some really important things included within it. And some of these other things, postal reform I just mentioned, demonstrate that we can work together and get things done on behalf of the country. Let me just mention as an aside, you may know that we have restored these community projects where there's some funding that can come from the federal level. We're able to secure a couple of things for Anne Arundel County through my office, but our delegation worked hard to benefit the county and the state. The deadline is April 15th for those kinds of requests or proposals to come in for FY 2023. So by all means, if there are projects that you're interested in securing some federal funding for that we might be helpful with, please let my office know in the meantime. With that, Mr. Chairman, I will turn it back to you. Thanks very much.
Well, thank you very much, Congressman Sarbanes. And on behalf of the entire Anne Arundel County delegation, I want to thank you and all of the members of the Maryland delegation for the yeoman's work that you're doing on Capitol Hill. We couldn't do what we do to support our constituents jointly without all the great things that you're doing. And just a point of personal privilege, as you are my congressman, pending what goes on with the maps, it's always great seeing you out there in the community. And we have a very ambitious agenda, and I know normally we have lots of questions, but we're going to move forward, and we'll invite you to stay on as long as you can, understanding that you've got a very busy schedule as well. But we just thank you for taking the opportunity to come before us today, and really appreciate all the great work that you're doing in support of not only the county, but the entire state.
Well, thank you very much. And let me just close by thanking everybody on this call for the partnership. We know that, as I said at the outset, we serve the same people. We're either serving at the federal level, the state, county, local level, but these constituents benefit from us collaborating and partnering with each other. And I want to thank all of you, because when there's something that comes to my office that I know can be better solved by someone in your capacity, we do that handoff, and it always works well, and vice versa. Obviously, when there are things that impact federal agencies where we can be of assistance, we try to do that, working very closely with members of the Anne Arundel County delegation. And again, it's all for the benefit of those that we serve. So thank you very much for the opportunity. All the best.
Thank you, Congressman Sarbanes. So with that, we have a voting session this morning, and the first bill on the list, or the only bill on this list, is House Bill 1183, Anne Arundel County Public Schools Preventive Measure Pilot Program by Delegate Saab. Matt, could you please tell us what that's about?
Yes, good morning. So we actually have a more updated version of this amendment than what is reflected in the agenda. It was just a minor change that I discussed with Vice Chair Bagnall and Delegate Saab, a change to the preamble to get the wording correct. So the changes that we have made to this bill include changing the title from students to school-age children mental health support system. The preamble acknowledges that the Anne Arundel County Mental Health Agency has an established relationship with the Anne Arundel County Public School Systems. They have mentored and treated school-age children with mental and behavioral health needs and their families, and expanded school-based services. We specified that a school-age child may participate in the program only through self-referral, that under this program, the Anne Arundel County Mental Health Agency shall designate 2 full-time health coordinators to coordinate these services, and that the Anne Arundel County Health Agency shall compile the report and report to the members of the Anne Arundel County delegation and to the House Committee on Ways and Means.
All right, so is there a motion on the bill?
We need to move the amendments first. Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
all right, so let's, is there a motion on the amendments?
Move the amendments.
Is there a second? All right, it's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All
Move the
right,
bill.
is there a motion on the bill as amended?
Move the bill.
Bill is amended.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that the bill be moved as amended. Sienna, could you please take the roll?
On House Bill 1183, Vice Chair as amended, Vice Chair Bagnall,
Yes.
Delegate Barnes, Delegate Bartlett,
Yes.
Delegate Carey,
Yes.
Delegate Chang,
Yes.
Delegate Chisholm,
Yes.
Delegate Henson,
Yes.
Delegate Howard,
Yes.
Delegate Jones.
Yes.
Delegate Kipke,
Yes.
Delegate Lehman,
Yes.
Delegate Munoz,
Yes.
Delegate Pena Melnick, Delegate Saab,
Yes.
Chairman Rogers.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the vote is with 2 absent, and the motion passes 13-0.
Okay, thank you, Sienna. So next.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Delegate Saab.
Yeah, I just want to take a moment and thank Delegate Bagnall and the subcommittee for hard work. I know everyone is pleased with this product, and I think it's great news for the student of Anne Arundel County, of our citizens, and I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. So I just want to thank everyone, and also thank the mental health agency for agreeing to working with us and taking this on.
All right, and to that list of thanks, Delegate Saab, I think we would be remiss if we didn't thank our counsel.
Yes, absolutely.
Matt, who did yeoman's work on this bill, and who I jokingly told we're going to name this the Matt Carpenter Mental Health Act of 2022 for all the effort that he put into getting this bill to where it is today. So Matt, thank you so much, and we'll have to figure out how we add that tagline some kind of way. So with that, we have 1, 2, 3 bill hearings today. Again, a very ambitious schedule. So we're going to move on to the first bill that we're going to hear today. And just to let everyone know, we will be sending these bills after the hearings to the subcommittee so that they can take a look at them and we can vote them out next week. So the first bill today is Senate Bill 510, Anne Arundel County Board of Education Member Compensation. Senator Bidle.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And you heard the House version of this bill last week or the week before. And this did come out of the Senate and out of the Senate delegation unanimously. But I know that there is some concern about the amount of the increase. And so you have an amendment that will be offered by Delegate Bartlett. And if I can just address the bill with that amendment, I think it would save us some time and be helpful, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So, the bill does increase salaries for the Board of Ed members. And the reason that I want to do this, there's actually 2 reasons. One is it'll put us more in line with Howard County, Prince George's County. We'll still be far less than Montgomery County, but with this amendment, we're almost identical to Prince George's and Howard County. And Prince George's is actually looking to make an increase. So, we'll be a little bit behind. This will not take effect until December 2nd, 2024, when the next board is installed. And actually, when you look at it, the first full year will be 2025. So it's almost 3 years away. So we're trying to get ahead of the schedule here and not already be behind from cost of living increases. So my one concern is to make it fair compared to what other local boards are paying their members. But I also found in the last election and the last time that we had to replace a board member was I had a number of people with very, very good career backgrounds. One was an education advocate with a national firm. One was a nurse, and neither one could afford to take the position because their businesses, their companies they work for were not going to pay their salaries. So I think if we really want a variety of people, not just retirees and people that haven't been working, I think we need to look at how we can get professional people to take these positions and get a variety of experience on the board. So what the new amendment does is it just increases by, I think it's by up to 17,000 for a member. I'm sorry, 15,000 for a member, 16,000 for the vice president, and 17,000, I'm going to get this wrong. I shouldn't be reading the amendment. I should be reading the bill. 15,000 for members, 16,000 for vice, and 17,000 for the president. And it also increases the student members' scholarship from 8,000 to 15,000. So it really changes all the salaries in the bill. And that's all I have. So save 45 seconds for you. Thank you very much. Be happy.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Vital. I just have in my notes that as Senator Vital mentioned, there is an amendment by Delegate Bartlett. There's also an amendment by Delegate Saab, and I know that the Education Subcommittee will take a look at that and provide us their read, and we'll vote on this next week. So the next Senate bill, are there any questions from the members? And I see the clock. I don't see any questions. So with that, seeing none, we're going to go to Senate Bill 499.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Simon.
Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Saab.
I'm sorry, my screen was split. I just wanted to just bring a couple things. I know you said, did you say that we're offering the amendments? I know you said there's 2 amendments. I am going to withdraw my amendment because with the Delegate Bartlett's amendment, it changes the way my amendment would actually read. But I also just wanted to point out a couple things that although Anne Arundel County, when we implemented the full school board back in 2017, they got a $4,000 raise. And I appreciate Senator Vital's remarks that we definitely need qualified people. I think we have qualified people currently on the board. And I believe that the majority of the people that get into public service, they do it because it's a public service. It's not a career, it's not a job. But I also wanted to point out that although she said we want to be in line with Prince George's County, just wanted to point out that Prince George counties have a much larger population and almost $1 billion more in our budget. But also I wanted to mention that the vast majority of all counties make anywhere between $7,000, $6,500, as little as $3,600. So I'm not saying they don't deserve a raise. I just wanted to just let everyone know and have the information that they need, that we cannot only compare ourselves to the larger jurisdictions, such as Montgomery and Prince George County, because they're also, Montgomery County has 1.5 million residents. We have 600, Prince George County budget is 2.7 billion, ours is 1.6. So, but with that, I'm happy to work with the subcommittee. I do have an amendment, just my amendment is going to be different since now there's been a change with Delegate Bartlett's amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Delegate Saab. Senator Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to be here. Wish I could be there in person, but this is Senate Bill 499. It does 3 things. 1, it sets term limits for the Board of License Commissioners to be 8 years. Secondly, it creates a commercial bingo alcohol license. Back in 2021, the state authorized Bingo World to have a sports wagering license, but they need a license for the alcohol. There's a history there. The council just passed a bill to allow them to have it, but the commission said that they have to have a state law. So we put it in there. It's emergency legislation so they can have it, and that's the bill.
All right, thank you very much, Senator Simon. Are there any questions from the members?
Mr. Chair.
Okay, Delegate Henson. Excuse me, Delegate Henson. Caroline, could you please take the clock down until the next person, because I can't see the members raising their hands. Delegate Henson, please.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Senator Simon Nair, for bringing the bill. Can you help refresh my memory of the resources and support that we have? I know that in the state, we have a number of things, the Problem Gamblers Fund, and we have things to help people deal with some of the impacts of some of the different things that we've made decisions to legalize here in Maryland. I know that Bingo World has broad appeal and attracts patronage from all over the county. District 30A is no outlier from that. But just so that we can have a grasp on what opportunities there are to help people that may not always find these sorts of engagements favorable, could you help me wrap my mind around?
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Delegate. I actually have legislation in to help teach kids in high school about gambling. That's the fastest growing area of gambling addiction. But what they do is they have millions of dollars set aside to reach out to people to help them, hotlines. So when they pass the gambling, they put that into it. So that's their attempt to help people preventative and then also afterwards. And then as far as alcohol, they have alcohol training awareness for most alcohol locations and things like that. And then alcohol is actually, the use of alcohol is taught in our public schools about the dangers of it, how to do it responsibly and so forth.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Delegate Saab.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator, for this bill. I think this is a great bill. I love term limits, and I think it's definitely, they need to get their liquor license to serve liquor. My only question is, can we put both in, and I haven't had a chance to actually look at the actual bill, just being virtual. Can we put both in one bill? Are these both just one bill that covers both? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Delegate Saab. Seeing no other questions, we will move to Senate Bill 310, Anne Arundel County and City of Annapolis Small Minority and Women-Owned Business Account Local State of Emergency. Senator Elford.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the delegation. The Senate Bill 310 began as a statewide bill, but through amendments has become a local bill. The cross file of the bill is being carried by my teammates, Delegate Dana Jones and Delegate Shanika Henson. And this is very much a response to the tornado and subsequent flood that the city of Annapolis and Edgewater experienced this fall. So when we had the tornado in early September, it was a locally declared state of emergency, city of Annapolis and Anne Arundel County, but not a state declared state of emergency, and we did not receive any FEMA designation or funding. Fast forward 2 months later, we had the fourth highest flood on record, and that was declared a state of emergency. Those businesses that were impacted by the flood were eligible for a pot of money in our small minority women-owned business account, what we call VAULT here in Anne Arundel County, because of that state designation. Now, the tornado did not meet that state designation, so those businesses missed out on the grant opportunities through Anne Arundel Economic Development Corporation that's funded through these VAULT funds through the casino funding. So this bill is meant to fix that, because we had a lot of constituents in Edgewater and the city of Annapolis impacted by that tornado. And I know many of you drive down West Street, you will still see tarps on the roofs of many of those businesses, as well as homes. So this bill is meant to, when there is a locally declared state of emergency in Annapolis or Anne Arundel County, and we have the check off, the sign off of the Department of Commerce, our Economic Development Corporation has the ability to convert loans to grants up to $50,000 for those businesses that were impacted. And I will tell you, the ability to do that for the flood really saved a number of our small businesses in Deal and Shadyside in the city of Annapolis. The fact that we could not do that for the tornado, that effect is still being felt today. This bill is meant to be a remedy to that. There is a check and balance with the Department of Commerce signing off on it. We made it local because the fund managers for those small minority women-owned business accounts kind of vary across the state. There are 8. It's really only us in Howard County where it's the same as our Economic Development Corporation. So we just didn't feel, the Senate didn't feel like it was kind of the right fix for the state, but we do need to figure it out statewide, which is why the other piece of the bill is a study that MACO requested. Our emergency managers across the state requested that we put together a work group to take the interim and figure out what is the appropriate response for the locally declared states of emergency that frankly we're going to see more and more as we see the climate change and as we see more frequent and severe storms. So with that, Mr. Chair, I request a favorable report.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Elford. Are there any questions from the members? I see Vice Chair Bagnall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator, for bringing this bill forward. I really appreciate it. And on the Broadneck Peninsula, we saw a lot of damage as well. Is the House version being amended to be local as well? So that or are you trying to keep that?
That I think that is up to the sponsors and the Ways and Means Committee. I would hope that it is. We wanted, again, to kind of tailor this for Anne Arundel for this year and then take the interim to find that statewide solution.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Delegate Henson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Elfreth, for bringing the bill. I also want to thank you for all the work that you did to assist the families and the businesses that were impacted by the tornado and then also the flood that followed shortly thereafter. It sounds like this bill is a matter of local control, that it's restoring and ensuring the local control here to make sure that we can quickly and nimbly respond to families and businesses should there be other similar natural disasters and states of emergencies. I know that we had an opportunity to tour the tornado damage with our state's chief executive, and for whatever reason that support from the chief executive didn't follow in terms of a state of emergency that would have timely brought the aid that was needed there. But I do think we were able to work out some additional workarounds with the chief executive's office. But am I hearing this correctly, that this bill is really about local control?
I would say it's about when there is a locally declared state of emergency that our businesses and nonprofits, because the bill also includes nonprofits, would have the rapid response that they need. With the check, we wanted to ensure there is a check because the funds are coming through the Department of Commerce. The Department of Commerce checks that box. But yes, it is about our locals being able to quickly respond to those states of emergency.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Are there any other questions regarding House Bill or Senate Bill 310? Seeing none. Next on our agenda, we have our firefighter chief, Chief Trish Wolford, who is going to update us on all the things going on with the fire department. So Chief Wolford, thank you for joining us this morning and look forward to your remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be brief with my remarks and then take any questions or comments that anyone has. I'm already getting a nod of approval. So your fire department is doing fantastic in Anne Arundel County. Obviously, just like everybody else, we are creeping our way out of pandemic issues. So for us, pandemic was not only about serving the community in a way we had never done before, but we really stepped up with our vaccination efforts. And just to give you an idea, the fire department itself, just firefighters and paramedics, vaccinated over 5,000 public safety out of our training academy in Millersville. We then took another step and partnered with our public school teachers and did about 14,000 public school teachers. And then we thought, well, we could probably do more, even though we're getting a little tired, but let's try and do more. And we partnered with numerous agencies and entities and put up that big white tent at Navy Stadium. And we vaccinated about 33,000 community members. So thankfully, a lot of that is behind us at this point. For those of you that know your fire department, it's a combination fire department of career and volunteer firefighters. We're almost 1,000 career firefighters. about 400 to 500 operational volunteers, and then about another 1,000 administrative volunteers. We've got 31 fire stations in Maryland, or in Anne Arundel County, and in Maryland and across the nation, we're considered one of the largest metro fire departments. Our call center takes in about almost 400,000 calls a year. We process and go to about, anywhere between 85,000, 90,000 calls. So we are a busy department, and maybe one or two things that you don't know in the background that we do, mobile integrated community health, which is a program that partners with our social workers and nurses from our local hospital. And we go house to house and meet with patients that are high acuity callers that really impact our 911 system. And we try to get ahead of the curve. So maybe they call 20 times in a month because they keep slipping and tripping and falling on something. Then we realize they still have shag carpet. We provide the funding, we help get the means and put in linoleum or wood floors so that their walker can move smoothly through their kitchen and living room and they're not falling. So it's very interesting work. On top of that, we still do safe stations at all 31 fire stations. This is in an attempt to try and lessen our impact of the opioid epidemic. Wildly successful. Some of you may say, how come I don't see or read or know a lot about it? We cannot afford to market it. That's how good it is. We are at our limits, which is good and bad. So we're thankful to have that program going. And then on top of that, we're just, maintaining business as usual as EMTs, firefighters, paramedics. So I'll open the floor if anybody has anything for me. I'm happy to always talk about the fire department and expand, but everyone's time is precious here today.
So Chief, and I see we do have a couple questions. I just want to take the opportunity first just to say thank you for your leadership. I know I had an opportunity to attend a statewide conference of firefighters, fire chiefs, and you were right there representing us well. Very proud of all that you're doing here in the county and all the work and your leadership and all the work that our fire department is doing. So I just wanted to publicly express that gratitude. And with that, I will turn it to Senator Bidle for the first question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make it quick. Chief Walker, thank you. And I want to echo the chairman's comments about your leadership and the effectiveness of our department. I do want to ask you how you feel about the 911 center. We've had testimony in the Senate that we're very short-staffed in the 911 center, and it's causing people to wait to even get through the line and report an emergency. Are you seeing that on the fire side?
We do see it on the fire side. I would not attribute all of that to staffing. I would actually contribute a lot of that to technology, the cost of upgrading, equipment, those types of things. So I don't attribute it to, on the fire side, all of it being staffing. I believe police might be in a different scenario.
Is there anything in the budget this coming year that you know of to help you with the technology issues?
So the 911 Consolidation Center is a large capital item that's going through. And I shouldn't say we're in our budget cycle, obviously, but is being proposed. And that's housed under OEN and Preety Emmerich. So with that, we've been going through a multitude of upgrades to try and pinpoint where some of those issues are. The biggest thing for us in Anne Arundel County, and that unfortunately we still bear the burden of, every call comes into the police department. Then from there, if it's fire or EMS, it gets transferred over to fire. That transfer time piece is one of our difficulties right now. And it's really just a matter of where the money has gone over the years and, how much you can possibly spread it. So that gap in time is what we would like to be able to eliminate.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you for your amazing work.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments for Delegate Saab?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since the chief was brief, I just want to take the opportunity and just echo what Senator Bidle and yourself have indicated. I want to thank you for your leadership, but I also want to extend the thanks to every single person in your department for their hard work, not just on a regular basis, but also during the pandemic. Your department and every single one of them has been giving a tremendous service to our community and my behalf, and I'm sure every single member of delegation. Just want to let them know that we appreciate everything they do. And And then we're here to support them. So thank you.
Thank you. I will pass it on.
All right. If there are not any other questions or comments, and again, Chief, thank you for everything that you're doing. We'll move to Ms. Tamika Perkins, Anne Arundel County Police Department, the Director of Youth and Victim Engagement, to talk about the SMART program.
Good morning, everyone. If I can just make a note about the agenda, that it's the START program, S-T-A-R-T. As a reminder, that stands for Safe, Trauma-Informed, Accountable, Restorative, and Transparent. Thank you guys so much for allowing us to update you on the program. We were in the pilot phase, but now we are in full countywide implementation in patrol and in school. And that is for a pre-arrest youth diversion program, one of the few in the country. As a data point, just to let you guys know, between July 1st and December 31st of 2021, we had 238 eligible participants referred to the program. That's about double what we anticipated, but there's not a single one of those cases that I think did not fit. I think as we see some of the impacts of COVID, as far as kind of being away from their support systems, we've seen the needs of the youth drastically increase, and some of those behaviors and the need for services increase with it. So just to give you guys an example, prior to COVID, our intake meetings, our psychosocial intake meetings lasted about 45 minutes to an hour. Since COVID, I would say on average about an hour and 30 minutes. The program is doing exactly what it's designed to do. 63.9% of the youth diverted away were youth of color. We're one of the few diversion programs that actually is impacting the racial and ethnic disparities at the frontline decision-making point. 94% of our youth from the first 6 months of the program, that's all I have recidivism data for, did not have additional negative law enforcement contact within 6 months. That's huge. With that being said, we are in a position where we are at capacity. We cannot continue to do the work that we need to do under current staffing levels because the needs of the youth are so intensive, and we want to do a good work, but we're very small staff for the needs and for the numbers that we're seeing. We have, in order to give the follow-up, in order to do that community engagement piece of mentorship, of frequent follow-up, of intensive services for those that need it, in order to get these young people linked with the job opportunities and the apprenticeships and the meaningful interventions that make it so meaningful, that set our program apart. We're working with counties around the state as well as across the nation that 100% want to pick up the model because they see the value in it. And we want to continue to set the standard, but that means we need support in order for us to keep supporting the kids. And I just thank you for giving the opportunity to speak about it. We've done some really, really cool things. Have met with Annapolis City to make sure that this is a countywide opportunity for the youth. We just hosted an art show for one of our young people, and she is now college bound, set to graduate, completely changed the trajectory. I just want to share with you a quote from her mom that says, "I cannot thank you enough for giving her an opportunity to focus on her strengths and seeing that she doesn't have to be defined by some of the negative choices she's made in the past." She was one of our original youth. She's been with us for 6 months. She's doing phenomenal, and was willing to actually speak with some media and get some media coverage of the art show. Another one of our youth, I'm really excited, this is hot off the presses, is going to be assisting Annapolis Middle School with getting some mindfulness education in the school, as well as a cool down wall. He's an artist, and so we're working with the principals, having the youth give back to the community where they cause harm. And so we're really, really, really proud of the program. Really, really happy with what it's done, but we also know that we want to be the best and we want to give our kids the best. And we're proud to report that it's doing what we said it would this time last year. So thank you guys for having us.
Okay, well, thank you, Ms. Perkins, for that update. Sounds like some really good programs. I will ask the members if they have any questions, and I see Vice Chair Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Perkins and Corporal Revere. It's always a pleasure to see you. I was sorry I wasn't able to make the art show, but I wanted to ask you to keep inviting us to these events, because I think I don't want to speak out of turn, but our members are really dedicated to public service, and your service to the public, to these young people, is life changing. I think we are also hearing you loud and clear that you need help and you need staff, and that takes money. I'm sure that we are happy to commit to finding resources and working with our county partners to make sure that you have what you need.
Thank you, ma'am. And we would love to
Senator
have you.
Elfreth.
I will get better at inviting you guys. I do apologize.
All right, Senator Elfreth.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Perkins, and thank you for your work. We know, we don't know how challenging it is, but we know how rewarding it must be for you, and certainly for the children and families that you are changing their lives for the better. Just to follow up, kind of dig a little deeper on Delegate Bagnall's question, just serving on a budget committee, I often ask, what is it that you need? How many more staff? What does that look like? Is there a number? And what more could you do with that?
So I just want to let you guys, I want to be respectful of your time, but just the way that we have expanded to address the needs of the post-pandemic is we are doing more outreach. We're getting ready to go into the schools and do something called Street Law, which is an evidence-based program about teaching youth, officers in plain clothes, teaching youth about their rights from a social justice aspect that is going to be a prevention measure that the unit is now responsible for. We're starting that at Meade High School Friday, and then next on the list is Annapolis and Old Mill and Arundel, and that is based on the principals who've reached out in no particular order. We also have gotten a lot more involved with preventative mediation within the school, as well as doing more outreach that's going to kind of prevent what we're seeing is a lot of deep-end youth who need services, but we can't divert. But we still want to prevent them, keep everyone safe. And so as it's grown, we're trying to address the needs with the same amount of staffing that we've had since the beginning, since the pilot phase. So that's what we're already working to do. And we want to expand that. We want to have community service days of service. We want to have a database of community service opportunities and community partners who are willing to help us with apprenticeships. We want to, that's the direction that we're heading in addition to the other things that I mentioned. Okay. The other types of programs that we are looking at best practices is we would need additional civilian and sworn staff devoted to it, similar to crisis intervention teams, because we're dealing with the mental health side of it. And I would love to discuss that further with you, what that looks like, because there's actually a couple different models that are all considered best practices for this kind of work.
Okay. Well, I can sense your passion, and I just want to thank you. And I know we all want to continue to work with you and find solutions to help build upon an already successful program. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So again, Ms. Perkins, thank you for all that you're doing. And I was aware of the programs that you're doing in Annapolis High and Meade. So thank you for that. And hopefully if you can provide some dates, we'll try to stop by and participate. So with that,
love to have you all at the unveiling of the cool down wall at Annapolis Middle. Okay,
just let us know. All right, so with that, we'll move to the last thing on the agenda. Ms. Gloria Dent, Anne Arundel County Board of Education, Candace C.W. Antoine Military Service Award, and tell us a little bit about that. And I want to acknowledge Ms. Michelle Corkadell, who's joined the call since we started. I already mentioned Ms. Dana Shawheim, who's also on the call. So Gloria, go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Senate members, delegates, and guests. I'm Gloria Dent, a board member for District 1, a U.S. Army veteran of 27 years, and I served with distinction for over 6 combat tours. I am retired here in Anne Arundel County and a proud member of the Board of Education for District 1. This morning, I want to speak with you about the Candace Antoine Military Service Award. While our president, Dr. Joanna Tobin, is traveling in Africa, working with our military, she also sends her regrets. I'm before you this morning to gain and ask for your support from not only being a sponsor, but also share with you this exciting honor that will pay tribute to Ms. Candace Antoine's legacy. As a member of the U.S. Army and the U.S. Navy, Candace was elected to the board in 2018, but her passion was the children. And we think that this award could not be more fitting for someone that has lived the life that Ms. Antoine lived, and to also honor her legacy as always wanting to take care of the children and find a way for them to be a part of our society, whether it's in our military, through a graduate program, through tech programs, or through colleges. Keep in mind that as I share this information with you this morning, I want you to place emphasis on what Congressman Sarbanes told you this morning. Our country, although we are not at war, our country around the world are at war. Our military is the best military there is in the free world. We're proud of our military and proud of the lethality of our military. What I will tell you as a person, being an enlisted member was the most exciting thing that I've ever done. But I can tell you what was very disappointing was to come from basic training, AIT, and have to eat out of the dining facility because I couldn't afford a burger. Why? Because I had no paid dues, because the cause of this is from funds that are being taken from service members each and every time they go into a commissary and just happen to want something different from what they're being afforded or provided from their military basic training or AIT. This program is not just to help and honor Candace Antoine names. It will help military families here in Anne Arundel County and help our high school students know that the next choice that they make will be one that will serve a country and join them part of a lethal military that is fighting for people around the world, not just here in our country. Our page is already up, it's already operational. We want to thank Century 21 for doing a phenomenal job of setting up Candace Antoine Military Award. However, that's just the beginning. What I'm asking here for you today is for you to become a sponsor of our program. The flyer is already out, it's already up. So with that, I ask that if you have any questions, please know that I'm here, I'm available. Members of our board are here this morning because this is something that we're extremely passionate about. Our military cannot survive without enlisted members. We make up over 82% of our armed forces. We are the tactical leaders, and we are also the highest recipient of a Medal of Honor award. Not that I want to be bestowed upon any member the Medal of Honor, because with that comes a lot of traumatic events. But I ask that if you think about having a Medal of Honor winner, know that it can be here from Anne Arundel County. Mr. Chairman, thank you for your time. I thank each of the board members for appearing here this morning with me, and thank each member of the delegation for your continuous support. And we are sending you invitations to join us for this prestigious event at the Anne Arundel County Board of Education boardroom on May 23rd. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dent. Are there any questions from the members? Seeing none. Is there a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded. We'll see everyone on the floor.
Thank you.